Okay, so what I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna go through these step by step to explain what we're doing. I'm gonna do a couple of them, and then beyond that, it's gonna be on you to do the rest. But I want you to watch. So when we're solving systems of equations, what you're always trying to do is you're trying to get down to one variable. The only reason why we want to get down to one variable is because you cannot solve for two variables, but it's pretty easy to solve for one variable. So what we can do is manipulate either one or both equations in order to make them similar so we can eliminate a variable. And so in this case, we have 5x and 6x. We have 8y and negative 4y. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually try to eliminate these y's because I know 4 is the multiple of 8, so I know it's pretty easy to do something to this 4 and actually still be able to do what I want to do. So I know that if I take 4 and multiply it by 2, I can get to 8. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply this equation by 2. Okay. Now you can't just multiply this part, you have to multiply all three parts right here. So what this does is it gives me 2 times 6 gives me 12x, 2 times negative 4 gives me negative 8y, and then 2 times negative 28 gives me negative 56. Now, this other equation I didn't touch, but I'm still going to bring it down right here. I'm going to put 5x plus 8y equals 22. Now what's good about this is that I have a positive 8 and a negative 8. Because I have a positive 8 and a negative 8, what I can do with these two things is add them together and then they will eliminate. So I'm going to add everything together since this idea eliminates the y's. So first the x's become 17x. Then the y's cross out. So the y's are gone. Then negative 56 plus positive 22 gives me negative 34. Now I have an x by itself, no y, so I can solve for x. So I see 17x, well, I know to get rid of a number next to a variable, I have to divide. So I divide by 17. And x gives me negative 2. So I just found my x, but now I need to find my y. And remember, this is a point. This is point xy. This is the point at which these two lines cross. So what I'm going to do now is take this x, I'm going to plug it in either into this first original equation or the second original equation. I'm just going to plug it in the first. It doesn't actually matter though. So I'm going to take 5 and instead of writing x, I know that x is negative 2. So I'm going to put in negative 2 for x. What this does is it eliminates the x for me already. So that gives me 22. When I do that, this gives me negative 10. Plus 8y equals 22. Now my next step is to try to get this y by itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a multi-step equation, or actually it's a two-step. First, you're going to get rid of anything that is not connected to the y. So this 10 right here, I'm going to get rid of it by adding 10 to both sides. That gives me 8y equals 32. Well, now I need to get y by itself, so I need to divide. So I'm going to divide by 8. And y gives me 4. So my x is negative 2, my y is 4, so my point is actually negative 2, 4 is where these two lines up here meet. Now, it's not always going to be like that, where you're just able to multiply one equation by something to get to another. Sometimes you have to multiply both equations. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually try to eliminate the y's. To explain why this is because I already have a negative and I already have a positive. So then I don't have to multiply by any negatives. That makes it a lot easier when I get down the line. So I have a negative 8 and I have a positive 3. I'm going to have to multiply these to the same number, so let me think of the first number they both can multiply to. Well, I know 8 times 3 gives me 24, and I know 3 times 8 gives me 24. So the first number I'm going to do is 24. So in order to get to 24 on the top, I have to multiply this top one by 3. In order to get to 24 on the bottom, I have to multiply this bottom one by 8. Notice I'm having to multiply both equations. You can do this. It just is just a little bit harder than the one before, but not much harder. So then we take this 3 and we multiply it through. 3 times 2 gives me 6x. 3 times negative 8 gives me negative 24y. And then 3 times negative 22 gives me negative 66. Okay? Same with the 8. 8 times 3 gives me 24x. 8 times 3 gives me positive 24y. And then 8 times 27. Don't actually know that offhand, so if you give me a second, I can calculate that. So 27 times 8 gives me 216. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine downwards. The y's cancel out. The x's become 30x. And then this becomes 150. Last but not least, I need to solve for x. So I'm going to divide by 30 because x was by itself. And I get x equals 5. So once again, once I know what x is, I have to go back to one of my two original equations and replace the x with 5. So I'm going to take 2 times 5 minus 8y equals negative 22. 2 times 5 gives me 10 minus 8y equals negative 22. I'm going to subtract my 10. Remember, I'm trying to get y by itself, so I have to get rid of the thing that's not directly next to y. So it gives me negative 8y equals negative 32. And then finally, I'm going to divide by negative 8, because remember, this is a negative sign that came from there. Divide by negative 8. Y gives me positive 4. So I have x is 5, y is 4, so my point is 5, 4. Okay. Now those are the 2 variable ones. The 3 variable ones are obviously a little bit harder. So let's move on to those. Now I'm going to skip this first one because it actually didn't work out and I forgot what I changed the answers to. But I'm going to move on to the second one. Okay. So once again, we're trying to get down to one variable. But you can't go straight from 3 to one variable. We, in fact, have to go from 3 to 2, and then go from 2 to 1. And what you'll notice is we're going to go, what I'm going to show you is we're going to go from 3 equations to 2 equations, and then from 2 equations to 1 equation. So that's kind of the same idea with the the variables. So once again, we're going to look at our values to see which one's the easiest to do. Well, I got 8, 2, and 2. I know I can multiply 2 to get to 8, but let's see if there's an easier one. Negative 5, 9, and 10. Well, I know I can multiply negative 5 by 2 to get to 10, but it's kind of hard to get to this 9. So I'm going to say, well, don't want to do that. So now let's try Z. I have 3, negative 6, negative 9. So since I have 3, negative 6, negative 9, I know that 3 times 2 gives me 6, and I know 3 times 3 gives me 9. So actually, I'm going to try these Z's out. All right? So, actually, you know what? I'm going to try the X's because we haven't actually multiplied by a negative yet. So I want to show you how to multiply by a negative. All right. So your first step is you need to pick two equations. Actually, you got first pick a variable that you're going to eliminate, which we just did, the x's, and now we're going to pick two equations. So I'm going to pick this first, or this second one, and this third one. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite them right here. Now make sure you guys indicate your z's somehow, because I've seen a lot of people try to make those into a 2, and it really confuses someone. Alright, so as you can see, these are already the same number. The only problem is I have one positive, I have both of them positive when I need at least one negative for me to do anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to make one of these negative. So I'm going to multiply them by a negative, or a -1. So I'm going to do this bottom one right here. Doesn't actually matter, but I just want to do it. So that's -1. So when I multiply this out, that's -1 times +2 gives me -2x minus 10y plus 9z, because remember, negative times negative is a positive, and then positive 25. So I'm going to bring this other one down. 2x plus 9y minus 6z gives me -16. From here, I'm going to add downwards. Once again, what that does is it eliminates the x's. The y's become -1y. And the z's become a positive 3z. Finally, you get 25 minus 16 gives me 9. Okay? So now we have one of the two variable equations. We need a second two variable equation. So that's what we're going to do. So now we have to use this one and one of these two. It doesn't matter which, but we need to at least use this one, because I have to use all three equations. You can't leave one out for no reason. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite this 8x minus 5y plus 3z equals 17 right here. And below it, I'm just going to pick one of the two equations. So I'm just going to pick this one. It doesn't actually matter which one you pick. Okay, so I'm right here. Now I need to make this 2 into the opposite version of this. So I know 2 times 4 will give me 8, but since I need an opposite, meaning a -8, I'm going to have to do a -4. Because -4 times a positive 2 gives me what I want. So -4 times 2 gives me -8. -4 times positive 9 gives me -36y. -4 times a -6 gives me a positive 24z. And then finally, -4 times 16 gives me 64. I'm going to rewrite the other one below it, so it's going to be 8x minus 5y plus 3z equals 17. Now, just like we did up here, we're going to try to eliminate them down here. Okay, the x's cross out. Now notice how I eliminated the x's. Again, you have to be consistent on what variable you eliminate. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense what you're doing. So, when we take the -36 plus a -5, that will give me -41y. 24 plus 3 gives me 27z. And then 64 plus 17 gives me 81. So, now I have two equations. Alright, remember that 3, 2, 1 thing? So 2 equations with 2 variables. So 2 equations with 2 variables. So now we're going to try to get down to 1 equation with 1 variable using the 2 we just got. So first I'm going to take this, I'm going to bring it down. -1y plus 3z equals 9. then I'm going to bring down this negative 41y plus 27z equals 81. Alright. Oh, I forgot the 27. Alright, there's 7. Okay, so now what I need to do is I need to pick a letter again. This is like a whole new problem. This is actually like the problems when we first started. Those 2 variable problems, we're going to do the same exact idea. So, 1 is easy to manipulate. It's the simplest. I would just take 1 times 41 to get to 41. Alright? But 41 is kind of a big number, and I don't really want to multiply that much. So I'm going to look at the z's. 3 and 27. Well, I know 3 times 9 gives me 27, so that might be an easier choice. So I'm going to try to get the z's by themselves. I'm going to try to eliminate the z's. So, since this is a positive 3, positive 27, I need to make this into a negative 27. So to do that, I need to multiply by negative 9. So, let's distribute. Negative 9 times negative 1 gives me 9y. Negative 9 times positive 3 gives me negative 27z. Then negative 9 times 9 gives me negative 81. This problem did nothing happen, so negative 41y plus 27z equals 81. Okay? So, combine downwards. That gives me 32, negative 32y. The z's cancel out. And actually, these cancel out too, giving me 0. But we're still working with it, so we can still work. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get y by itself. So I'm going to put negative 32 on both sides, divide by negative 32. That gives me y equals 0. Okay, so now I know that y equals 0. I'm going to do like I did on the front page. I'm going to go back to my original 2 equation, all right, my 2 variable equations, and plug in 0 for y. So I'm going to do this first one. So I'm going to get negative 1. So this is kind of a new thing. Negative 1 times 0 plus 3z equals 9. Now it's going to be negative 1 times 0 is 0 plus 3z. So I'm not actually going to write the 0. I'm just going to write the 3z equals 9. Then I'm going to divide by 3. Divide by 3. Z gives me 3. Now I have my z and have my y. So the last step is I need to go from my 2 variables to my 3 variables. Okay? So we're working back up to the top. So now I have 2 of these 3 variables. I'm going to pick one of these equations. You know what? I'm going to do this second one right here. No reason why. Doesn't really matter which. And I'm going to write 2. I don't know x, so it's going to be 2x plus 9 times 0 minus 6 times 3 equals negative 16. Well, oh, I need to put everything on camera. So let's figure this out. 9 times 0 is 0. So that's nothing's going to be there. So I'm going to have 2x minus 18 equals negative 16. This isn't always going to work out. Sometimes you're going to have to actually add these 2 together, but in this case it did. You get rid of the 18. Add 18 to both sides. 2x equals 2. Divide by 2. So now I have x equals 1. I have y equals 0, and I have z equals 3. That is it. Those are the process to get that. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on to the next type of idea. And that is the word problems. Now, all I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to actually set these up, because once again, it's like the front page when you're trying to solve them. So what this says is 2 schools are going on a ski trip. They are using buses and vans to transport the students. The first school has 7 buses and 9 vans for a total of 120 students. The second school has 12 buses and 2 vans that can hold 152 students. How many students can the buses hold and the vans hold? So right away, I've heard buses and vans I don't know how many times. So I'm pretty sure that I know what my variables should be. My x should probably be buses. My y should probably be vans. So when I have my variables, all I have to do now is figure out what numbers deal with buses and what numbers deal with vans. So in this case, buses, all right, I know the first school uses 7 buses, so I know it's going to be 7x. I know the first school also uses 9 vans. So plus 9 vans equals how many students it can hold. The second school, same idea. 12 buses plus 2 vans equals 152 students. That's all it's asking for. So, from here, you solve this like the front page. This is just a 2-variable system of equations. Okay? I'm not going to go through it, but you don't just straight up add downwards. You have to eliminate a variable first, otherwise you can't solve. I'm just going to do this second one. The third one's really like the first one. A couple is trying to plan for a wedding. They are having fish and chicken as a selection for the night. They have 65 guests attending, and they have to spend $25 on each plate of fish, $30 on each plate of chicken. They spend a total of $1,825 on the wedding meal. How many people ate the fish, and how many ate the chicken? Once again, I'm hearing things about fish and chicken. People ate fish would be my x. People ate chicken would be my y. It's always important to figure out what your variables are first. Now, first thing I hear about chicken and fish is right here with $25. It says $25 for fish, so that'd be x, plus $30 for chicken, which would be y. Now, since this is the cost of it, I'm going to go with the thing that talks about cost. So I'm going to do $18.25. Now, the second one's a little tricky. There's a reason why I said people ate fish and not just fish, and people ate chicken and not just chicken. Because your x and your y aren't actually just the number of fish, but they're actually the number of people who ate the fish. So the second equation is kind of easy, but it's kind of hard to think of at the same time. So I know there's 65 guests attending. X amount want the fish, Y amount want the chicken, totaling in a total of 65 people. So that's how you would do that equation right there. Okay? All right. I'm not going to solve these. Once again, you need to eliminate a variable before you do anything else, and then from there you should be able to solve. All right, last but not least, I'm going to actually be doing one more of the 3 variables at the end of this video. So if you need it, let me know. Or not let me know. Watch the end. All right, system of inequalities. So I'm going to first start with the symbols. This is a less than sign. This is a greater than sign. So it means less than, greater than. Now, if it doesn't have a line under it, we're going to create a dotted line when we graph this. This is a less than or equal to. This is a greater than or equal to. If we have the line under it, we're going to create a solid line when we graph this. Okay, you need to know those things before anything else. Now, every equation is created up of 2 parts. The y-intercept, including the symbol in front of it, and the slope right here. You always start with the y-intercept. That's this number right here. The y-axis is right here. What it's saying is that at -3, this line that we're creating is crossing the y-axis right there. So I'm going to start where the y-axis is, at -3. Now my slope tells me to go up 1 over 2. So I'm going to go up 1 over 2. Now you can continue this process if you want a more uniform line, or you could have just stopped at 2 points. Now, what it's telling me is that I have a less than sign. So I look at the less than sign means I make a dotted line. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a dotted line that connects all these points. Now the next step's a little tricky, because what we're going to look at is what does this symbol mean? It says y is less than. So we care about y being less than. So we're going to look at the y-axis. Well, the y is less than -3 when we go down, and it's greater than -3 when we go up. So if y is less than -3, that means I need to shade the area under the line, because all of these numbers on the y-axis is below it, so meaning less than. This next one's a little tricky because they don't give you the full slope. You're going to have to create it. So whenever you have a whole number without a bottom part, you're going to have to put a 1 under it. Once again, we look at this symbol. It's a +1, so it's a +1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a point at +1. Then I'm going to follow the slope. It's -2 over 1. So I go down 2, 1, 2, and I go over 1. Notice how this one is going in a positive direction. This one will be going in a negative direction. That is very important because I see a lot of you guys trying to do this. Go down 2 to the left 1. You're trying to do both opposite things when you just need to go down instead of going up and go to the right. So once again, this means solid. So I'm going to make a solid line right here. Not going to be the most perfect. I'm not asking you guys to have a perfect line. Just want you guys to have a solid line to represent that. Now, because of it's solid, alright, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look back up here. I'm going to say, okay, greater than. When is y greater than? So at 1, is y greater than when I go up? Or is y greater than when I go down? Well, I know that 2 is bigger than 1, so that's greater than, right? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Those are all greater than things. So if I shade above it, that would be greater than. Notice how I didn't stop at this dotted line. I continued to go throughout this entire line, because you have to do that. Because once we've done that, what we notice is that we have a double shaded area. This little area right here was shaded this way and it was shaded this way. So what I'm going to have to do is actually darken this area up, because this is what's known as my solution area. Meaning if I put any point from this area into either the first or second equation, it will make a true statement. Alright? So that's how you do it when they look like this. Now, when they look like this, it's a little bit harder because you're going to have to make it look like our first problem is up here. Okay? So I need to get this by itself. So I have 2 steps. Step 1, add or subtract the x. We're going to do the opposite to get rid of the x. So in this case, you have 9x minus 6y is greater than -12. So I need to get the x over here. So it's a positive x because we have nothing in front of it. So I'm going to subtract 9x from both sides. That leaves you with -6y on the left, still a greater than symbol. And now, what a lot of you guys try to do is take this -12 and subtract 9. These are not like terms. This does not have an x. This does have an x. Therefore, they cannot combine. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this guy down right here, because I know that anything next to the x is the slope, so I'm going to put them right there. I'm going to bring this 12 behind it. Nothing changed, nothing combined, nothing did anything. All we're at is right here, which brings me to step 2. Divide by the y. Now when I'm dividing by the y, this is all I have to do. I divide by the whole thing. That means a negative sign too. So I'm going to divide by -6, divide by -6, and divide by -6. What this does is it cancels out the -6 right there, leaving me with just a y. This part you're going to have to do in your calculator. So, what I want you to notice is that on your calculator, you should always take the top divided by the bottom. So it's -9 divided by -6. It's going to give me a decimal. But I need a fraction. So I'm going to press this math button. Then I'm going to see it highlighted in fraction. I'm going to press enter. So it's going to take my answer, which is 1.5, and turn it into a fraction. Press enter. It gives me 3/2. So that means that this -9 over -6 reduces down to a positive 3/2. And let's not forget our x. Last but not least, -12 divided by -6 is going to give me a positive 2. Now, this only works when we divide by negative. -6 is a negative, so what we're going to do is take this sign, change directions. Okay? Now I'm going to do the same thing with the second equation. 2x plus 5y is greater than or equal to 15. So I need to add or subtract the x. So my two steps. It's a positive 2, so I'm going to subtract it. Leaves me with 5y is less than or equal to -2x. Remember, you do not combine those two things together. If you do, you're going to mess up. Then I need to get the 5 away from the y. So the second step, divide by y. Y. So just in case, I'm going to tell you right now, this doesn't actually reduce, but just in case, -2 divided by 5 gives me -0.4. So I'm going to press math, enter, enter, and look at that, it didn't change. It's still -2 over 5. So -2 over 5, x, 15 divided by 5 is 3. Now what you'll notice is I did not divide by negative. So the sign comes down the same way. Nothing changed. So now I have my first equation, I have my second equation, I can graph. So I'm going to start at positive 2. I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, go over 1, 2. And this does not have a line under it, so that means a dotted line. A little dotted line. And because it says less than sign, I need to shade under the line. The next one, it starts at 3. I go down 1, 2, go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, put a little dot. Then I'm going to connect these with a solid line. Okay, and because this is also less than, I'm going to have to shade under the line as well. Remember, I shade all the way under. Then I look for my double shaded area, which is right here. I'm going to shade darken it. And we have our answer area. Okay? Now, you're going to have problems on the test like this, where you have like a y is less than, or an x is greater than or equal to, or whatever, something like that. And it's just going to be a plain old number. So when you see y, what that means is you're going to make a horizontal line where y is 4. Without any x's or anything over here, it's just y horizontal line at 4. So I'm going to find 4 and I'm going to make a horizontal line. It needs to go through the y-axis, since it's y, it needs to go through 4 itself. Okay, now this next part's pretty easy. Y is less than, you shade below the line. Okay, shade below the line. Now the x is -2. Same idea, but in reverse direction. Instead of a horizontal line, I'm going to make a vertical line where x is -2, which is right here. This is the only one I could see most people getting confused on. It says x is greater than -2. So we don't have an up and down anymore. We only have a left and a right. So we look at it, greater than. Okay, well, x is greater than negative 2. Is it going to be in this side where we're going further negative, or in this side where it's going further positive? Well, I know that greater than negative 2 would have to be positive at some point, so I'm going to shade. I would shade to the right. Okay? Those are all the things that you need to know. If you want to pay attention to the extra example, do so. Otherwise, you can start your test. All right. So I'm going to do one more example where it's not as easy. All right, I'm going to do this one right here because you've got a couple extra steps. It's pretty much the same thing. It's just you're going to have to multiply more. All right, x, y, z. All right, so let's look at it. X's, they really have nothing in common. Y's, nothing in common. Z's, at least we have one pair of z's that we can just cancel out right away. So I'm just going to choose the z's for simplicity. Take 11x plus 8y minus 3z equals negative 23, and negative 5x plus 2y plus 3z equals 21. Okay. Since we're eliminating the z's, I already have a positive and negative of the z's, so I don't actually have to do anything to them. So I'm just going to combine downwards. This is going to give me 6x plus 10y, and that's all going to equal negative 2. Now the next step is to do this again, but remember, I chose 1 and 2. I need to choose at least 3. So I got to choose at least 3 for this next part, and I'm going to probably just choose 2. The reason being, this is already a positive, and this is negative. So I don't actually have to do anything when I already have a positive and negative besides multiply. So that gives me negative 5x plus 2y minus 8z equals negative 31. And then I also have, oh, sorry, that's positive 21. Okay, hold up. Sorry. You guys are probably thinking, where is he getting these numbers at? I'm so lost. I'm not making them up, I swear. All right, so let me finish that up. And then the next part is going to be 6x plus 5y minus 8z equals negative 31. So what I need to do from here is I need to actually eliminate the z's again. Because remember, I eliminate the z's up here, so I need to do the same down here. Alright, this is where the 3 and the 8, if you remember from the very first problem, both 3 and 8 can multiply to 24. So we're going to multiply this top one by 8, and this bottom one by 3. Sometimes you're just going to get big numbers. That's okay. You're not doing anything wrong. You'll just get big numbers. So when I distribute, I get negative 40x plus 16y plus 24z. Equals 168. Next thing is I'm going to take this 3 and multiply it through. This is going to give me 18x plus 15y minus 24z equals negative 93. All right, so I'm at this stage. So once again, I'm going to combine downwards. This is going to give me 22x plus 31y. These cancel out. And this will give me 75, positive 75. So now I have my two problems. I have the first and the second. And so now I went from 3 equations to 2 equations, then from 3 variables to 2 variables. So I'm on the right track. Gives me 6x plus 10y equals negative 2. And I got 22x plus 31y equals 75. Alright, this next part, we're going to get big numbers. As I said, you're sometimes just going to get big numbers. Alright, now, 6 and 22, I know 6 can't multiply 22, and I know 10 can't multiply 31, 31 can't multiply 10. Alright, so in this pickle, what I always tell you guys should do is you should just multiply by the opposite number. So this top one, I'm just going to multiply by 31, because I'm going to try to get this 10 and 31 to be the same. This bottom part, I'm going to do 10. And I have a dilemma, though. I have two positive numbers. I need to make one a negative. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this 10 negative. Okay? So, let me multiply through. So it's going to be 31 times 6. So that should give me 186x. 31 times 10 gives me 310y. And then negative 62. I'm going to distribute this through. That's going to give me negative 220x minus 310y equals negative 750. Alright, so let's combine downwards. These give me negative 802. And then these give me negative 34. Alright, so I can tell you right now I messed up somewhere. Gotta figure out what I messed up on. 6 times 31 is still 186. Oh! Look! I made a mistake. That's where the mistake came from. This should be a positive 220. Look at me. Alright, when I make a mistake, that's how you have to go back. You have to look, where did I make a mistake at? I have to make a mistake somewhere, because if you get a decimal, that means you made a mistake somewhere. Alright, so this gives you 406x. That gives you negative 802. And so now I got to divide by 406. Divide by 406. X gives me negative 2. My next step is I have to take this negative 2 and plug it back in. So I'm going to do it for the first one. 6 times negative 2 plus 10y equals negative 2. That gives me negative 12 plus 10y equals negative 2. Add 12, 10, sorry. So I plugged it in, multiply, got negative 12. I have to add 12 right now. And that's going to give me 10y equals 10. I'm going to solve, divide by 10, divide by 10. Y gives me 1. So I have my x is negative 2, my y is 1. Last but not least, I have to go back to the original 3 equations with 3 letters and plug in the 2 letters I have to solve for the third one. So, I'm just going to do this one right here. Okay? So I know x is negative 2. I know y is 1. So let's just, so I was going to plug into, this first one. So what we'll do is we'll have 11. Instead of x, I'll have negative 2 plus 8. Instead of y, I'll have 1 minus 3z equals negative 23. So I'll have negative 22 plus 8 minus 3z equals negative 23. And combine these two things together. So negative 22 and positive 8, because remember, neither has a variable, so they can combine like terms, will give me negative, I think 16, minus 3z, I'm sorry, not 16, 14. And then negative 23, and now all I gotta do is solve. So I add 14 to both sides. That gives me negative 3z, gives me negative 9. Finally, divide by negative 3 to get that z by itself. Z equals 3. So I have my x is -2, my y is 1, my z is 3. All right.